Captain Marvel. But before that, she really was not a very successful character. People knew who she was, but she couldn't hold a title to save her life. And so what ultimately happens here is Adam Brashear uses his energies to manipulate positive matter, channels them into Carol Danvers, and she basically now has cosmic level powers. The kicker about this is that it doesn't matter with Thanos. Thanos is still able to take her out. Not only that, she's able to use her energies to channel them into Spectrum in order to allow Spectrum, who is basically living energy, to go into the mind of Thanos and try to override his mind. So it's literally like a chain reaction. Adam Brashear feeds Carol Danvers, who in turn feeds Spectrum. But when Spectrum enters the mind of Thanos, she realizes that his mental energies
All right
are
then.
way too much for her to be able to cope with. They're beyond the level she can even begin to comprehend. And that's true with this character. Al Ewing's not retconning anything here. It's always been that way. Thanos' mental energies, his mental powers, not necessarily telepathy, different things like that, but just the abilities he's capable of by using his mind have always been his greatest feat, his intelligence, so on and so forth. When Spectrum goes into his mind, she's literally overwhelmed, and he in turn takes the energy that was being pushed into him by Spectrum and sends that energy back out and shoots it at Adam Brashear. So it's like this giant circle. Adam Brashear charges Carol Danvers, who charges Spectrum, who forces her energies onto Thanos, who in turn takes those energies and shoots Adam Brashear. Now, the reason why this is an important thing when it comes to Thanos is because he always is at the top of his game when it comes to battle. And so because of the fact that he realized that Adam Brashear was the one who was making all of this possible in the first place, taking him out means that Carol Danvers would not be in her position of binary, and it also means that Spectrum wouldn't be nearly as powerful. Now, the funny thing about all this is that T'Challa's watching all this unfold. Now, in terms of his intelligence, T'Challa is pretty smart. And I would say he's probably smarter than Thanos, just because of the fact that when it comes to the top, 5 smartest people in the Marvel Universe, Thanos ranks at like number 6 or number 7. Black Panther is in the top 3, as far as I'm aware. And so because of this, Black Panther is just kind of watching things unfold. But even while the Ultimates are doing the best they can to face off against him, Thanos is just trashing him. He's trashing them all one by one. And this just shows you how capable he is, that he's going against America Chavez, who can open portals, she can feed off energy. He's going toe-to-toe with Adam Brashear, who's literally a guy that can manipulate particles. He's going against Carol Danvers, whose strength is on par with the Incredible Hulk in arrested form. I mean, he's going against everybody and doing his own. And so because of the fact that T'Challa is so intelligent, he comes to the realization that they can't fight Thanos with brute force. There's no way they're going to stand a chance. If Thanos can stand toe-to-toe with the Incredible Hulk, they can't beat him. And so the only way to defeat him is to use their minds, to use their wits, and do the best they can. And so what happens here is they basically shut off access to his mind. They more or less use a mental projection, or use mental energies, the kind of energies that were designed to keep Connor Sims contained, and they in turn project those mental energies into Thanos and quite literally sever the, electronic synapses. They basically shut off his brain's ability to function, is essentially what they do. Now, under normal circumstances, and T'Challa tells us this, under normal circumstances, shutting off the brain of Thanos would have killed him. But as we know, he's been barred from the realm of Mistress Death, and so he's basically in a catatonic state. Now, this is Al Ewing saving Thanos. This is basically him just saying, hey, we're going to use him later on. We're not going to remove this piece from the chessboard yet because he's too good. He's not necessarily a queen, but he's certainly a bishop or a rook. And so we're not going to remove him yet because he's a guy that we need to use later on. Now, this will probably feed into some massive crossover event because, as most any Marvel fan will tell you, for those of you guys who are new, as most any veteran Marvel comic fan will tell you, if there's any one person in the cosmos to have on your team when it comes to matters of intelligence, Thanos is one of the guys who you want in your corner. I mean, perfect case scenario, you've got Thanos and Galactus and all the cosmic entities, but if I had to pick one, Thanos would be my guy, just because of his experience, because of what he's capable of. And so because of this, the Ultimates initially go back to bickering with one another. They go back to arguing with one another. But following Thanos
Let's see.
attacking the
You can
Ultimates,
see this.
I
I use silver there instead of white, so it's really hard to see on camera, but that his eye pattern there is actually silver, and it matches the silver background, which is just great. I love it.
But he's also overwhelmed by the gravity of things because in the mind of Connor Sims, Civil War II is happening. The superheroes are fighting on planet Earth because some inhuman can see the future. But for him, he's like, there's much bigger things to worry about. Like, there is a threat out there to the universe, likely even to the multiverse. And so it's like, why are you fighting over this? This is more or less the Civil War II equivalent to Annihilation from Civil War I. And what I mean by that is, for those of you guys who don't know, while the Civil War I event was taking place with Captain America and Tony Stark fighting one another, the villain Annihilus had discovered the negative zone's equivalent of the power of Cosmic, the energy that Galactus wields. And Annihilus had invaded the Earth-616 universe and was literally cutting a swath through the universe. I mean, just wiping out planet after planet. just wiping out life all over the place. It was really like guerrilla warfare tactics. It was the last battle at the Alamo. It was the various cosmic forces doing the best they could to survive. And the heroes on Earth are fighting about superhuman registrations. That's basically what's happening with this story right now. Or at least that's what Albion seems to be leading up to. That's one of the reasons why
What up, Christopher Stromman? What's up, buddy? Do you have any good food today? Looking for my Japanese ink pen. It's fancy. I'm ordering right now, but I can try. Looking good, says Patrick. Thank you. This is the worst it's gonna look though. It's looking pretty lame, right? But that's just the base coat. So the title's looking great. The title looks real good. Dang, where's my freaking thing, bro?
This entity would probably result in the destruction of the multiverse. Not only that, Galactus would cause.
Sorry guys, I gotta find this pen. I can go on without it, but I don't want to. So. Oh, I stashed it. I stashed it with my other pens that look similar. I was like, this is weird, because I wouldn't misplace that normally.
And this is basically just Galactus building an army for himself using his power cosmic. It's him creating what looks like it's going to be 6 different heralds for the purpose of leading a campaign against whatever this multiversal or this omnipotent being happens to be that managed to chain up eternity. Okay, so I absolutely love Ultimates. Like, it's I think really one of the standout titles in all new, all different Marvel and Marvel Now 2.0. The sad thing is that like not a lot of people know about it, or they don't know what's going on in it. And so because of that, they're just like missing out on this amazing stuff. So I'm really hoping this video will serve the purpose of letting you guys know what's going on, and you guys will go out and buy it because it is an awesome title. So for those of you guys who are curious about like cosmic Marvel, about like Eternity and Galactus and all that kind of stuff, this takes care of all that. Ultimates covers all that. We've covered all the Ultimate stuff up to this point, but it covers all that. But the big question that people have had is, who chained Eternity? That was the big question. We saw in all new, all different Ultimates that somebody had basically put Eternity, the living embodiment of the multiverse, in chains. Now, what Al Ewing is doing here is actually offering a little bit of a change with regards to the Eternity concept.
Christopher Stromlin says, not yet, busy. Today's haul from the comic store was ridiculous. Looks amazing, yeah. Same thing. I think I saw that earlier. Where do you buy your pens and pencils? I buy them on Amazon.
Some of the history of the various different multiverses that have existed.
Almost every art supply I've ever bought, I got it on Amazon.
It won't be confusing in any way, but the idea here is that we initially pick up with Adam Brashear, with Blue Marvel, basically just kind of like, you know, staring into and trying to figure out what's going on with everything. Because remember, the Ultimates basically disbanded during the events of Civil War II, when Carol Danvers was using the Ultimates as a way to basically carry out her goal of keeping crime from happening before it happened. Of course, Ulysses and all that kind of good stuff. But because of the fact that a lot of people hated Civil War II, what Al Ewing ended up doing was basically bringing the Ultimates back together to answer the question of who chained Eternity. And it was only when the Ultimates had learned this had happened that they began to ask the question of what was going on. Now, from this point, we transition over to Monica Rambeau. And the funny thing about Monica Rambeau is Spectrum is that historically, she's played a lot of different roles. I mean, she's been Captain Universe, I believe. I want to say she was Captain Marvel at one point. But the whole idea here, I don't think she was Captain Universe. I think she was just Captain Marvel. I think it was, I'm confusing her with the girl from Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers. The random chick who was in a car wreck and then suddenly saved by the sentience of the universe and became Captain Universe. We'll cover that next year. But Monica Rambeau played Captain Marvel for a time. And the whole idea is that she was always kind of considered to be a throwaway character by a lot of readers in the sense that she never really received first time in the sun. And the cool thing about this is that she actually gets it. Because what Al Ewing has really been harping on with her character is how powerful she is. That she is, in effect, pure energy. That the physical body that we see is not her true form. That Adam Brashear looks at her and sees her for what she really is, which is basically just pure energy in the form of a human, meaning she can basically do anything. Now, we kind of knew that with her character to a degree, in the sense that she was able to manipulate all facets of the energy spectrum. She could turn into any form of energy. She could use any form of energy.
Was at Hobby Lobby, and they didn't have much in selection of mechanical pencils to a. They didn't have much in selection of mechanical pencils to a of chalk, cold chalk, and other pencils, but not mechanical. Well, I like mechanical pencils a lot because they are just as good, and you don't have to sharpen them. They're always sharp. Loves me a good Mechie pen. Mechie pen. I actually don't have any on hand, but that's just because I don't know. I should have some mechanical pencils, but I don't. I haven't gone. Once I use up all the pencils I have in my house, then I'll get some mechanical pencils. Let me bring up my reference picture real quickly.
By Connor Sims to Galactus' ship Ta-2, and they're met with America Chavez, who basically says, look, there is a massive threat coming, and we have to find a way to deal with this. Now, America Chavez is one of these characters who's only ever really as interesting as the story that she's in. She's not inherently interesting by herself. We know this because ultimately, like America number 1 came out, sold really well, and then America number 2 tanked. So she's just not really an interesting character. But for what she does here in the Ultimates, this makes her interesting. And that's why I say, in Marvel Comics, a lot of the characters are not inherently intriguing. It's the events surrounding them that make them intriguing. For example,
they did not have quite a bit in selection of acrylic paint pens. I was looking for Zebra 0.5. So I don't really use acrylic paint pens. I think the Poscas might be considered part acrylic, but I don't even think they are. Yeah, really, you can just try different pens, but from what I've found is that acrylic pens have too much water, and you can't really paint on a comic book with them because they will wrinkle your book, which is okay. You can let your book dry, and it'll be fine in most cases, as long as you don't get it super wet. But it's just that they are just not. You just can't use them in most cases for what I'm doing, so I don't. I have some acrylic paint pens that I could send to you that I'm not using. If you want them. For other projects.
Galactus being made the Lifebringer was such a huge deal in terms of the contents of the story, is that from the perspective of Master Order and Lord Chaos, they represent opposing sides, right? I mean, we've had this discussion countless times, and we'll have this discussion again when we basically remaster Infinity Gauntlet and when we do Infinity War and all that cosmic stuff next year. The whole idea is that the universe is basically in balance. There is order and there's chaos, and you can't have one without the other. A perfectly ordered universe will look crazy. A perfectly chaotic universe will look just as crazy. Jim Starlin showed us those two things when we basically went inside the minds of Thanos and Adam Warlock to see a perfect universe in Adam Warlock's mind and a chaotic universe in Thanos' mind. So because of this, they basically work in unison. The issue here is that in the mind, in the perspective of Master Order and Lord Chaos, Galactus is supposed to be the Devourer of Worlds. That's his role in the universe. That's the role that he plays. In the same way that Master Order and Lord Chaos play the role of two opposites, with the in-betweener being the reconciliation between order and chaos, in the same way that Eternity plays the role of being the living embodiment of the universe and so on.
Never painted, was just looking around and saw they had an entire aisle of them. What kind of paint do I use? For paint, I use Arteza. I really only crack these out when I have to, when I'm having too much trouble with my paint pens, because the paint pens are just easier and I know them better. But, you know, you can use anything you want, but these are Sharpie oil-based paint pens, and you can get them on Amazon. You can get them anywhere, really.
So the idea here is to basically have Galactus on trial and say, Galactus is supposed to be the Devourer of Worlds. If he's not doing this, he's not part of the cosmic order. He's not maintaining maintaining its role, he's going against cosmic law. Ultimately, the Living Tribunal says no. If this is going to be the case with Galactus, then this is basically his perfect iteration. This is his perfect form. He has moved in the direction, moved into his next stage of evolution. He's not violating any laws. Now, the issue that's made with this is that the Living Tribunal also establishes that because of the fact that the all-new, all-different Marvel universe and even multiverse is still new, that the cosmic law is still being made. The hierarchy is still being constructed. So for those of you guys who are asking for a new hierarchy for all-new, all-different Marvel, a new cosmic and power hierarchy, we can't do that yet because we don't know what the hierarchy is. And this plays out when Master Order and Lord Chaos kill the Living Tribunal. Now again, because of the fact that they kill the Tribunal and essentially take his place, what they do in turn is they move on and say, we are going to impose our will, we're going to impose our order onto everything. We're going to make the universe bend to our will. It's going to be how we believe it should be. It's going to function the way that we think it should. Now, in the midst of all this, we end up coming across some sort of crazy, enigmatic kind of energy that makes its presence known to the Ultimates. Now, of course, as this energy is fought by the Ultimates, as this energy begins to coalesce, we end up finding out that this energy is the Shaper of Worlds. Now, this is really kind of cool because the Shaper of Worlds is basically a cosmic cube that went crazy. Now, the funny thing about this is that the Shaper of Worlds cannot really do anything on its own. Because it's a cosmic cube is basically bound to the intention of the person who wields it. And so it would be like if I gave you a pencil, right? The pencil can only do what you do with it. The pencil can't draw by itself. The pencil needs you to pick it up and draw something on a piece of paper. And that's how a cosmic cube works. The cosmic cube can't do anything on its own. The Shaper of Worlds is the exact same way. Now, what the Shaper basically tells us is that when it came into existence in the Marvel Universe before Secret Wars, that it basically functioned in all the ways that we saw it do its whole thing. That it would be a villain, it would show up, it would do some crazy things here and there. But when the collapse of the multiverse took place, the Shaper of Worlds was effectively ushered outside all space and time. And when it did, it saw something out there. It saw a force out there that nobody knew about. And so because of that, it basically confined him down to a singular point where it more or less drove him insane, but it also made his energy signature, incorporeal. And so what it's been doing is basically reconstituting itself down to a recognizable form, which is then in turn harnessed by Adam Brashear and the Ultimates more or less for safekeeping. And so because of the fact that the Living Tribunal has essentially been killed, the first step of Master Order and Lord Chaos is bonding themselves into the being Logos, and then to also try to basically force Galactus back into being the Devourer of Worlds. In terms of them individually, they're not able to force Galactus back into the position of being the Devourer of Worlds. And so for the most part, they launch an attack, but nothing really happens. Galactus just fixes himself, and then he calls it a day. But what Al Ewing also does here is he invokes a guy by the name of Jim Henson. Now, Jim Henson is a new creation. He's something newly introduced by Al Ewing, and so is a lot of the stuff that we're going to see with a group called the Troubleshooters. And these are basically kind of recruits that have been organized under Jim Henson for the purpose of operating as like a black ops team, more like a recon team and intelligence team. Now, initially, Jim Henson is contacted by Phil Vaught. Of course, we know him as the governmental liaison who's been tasked with monitoring the Ultimates. Of course, the reason why the government did that is because of the amount of power the Ultimates possess, and the idea that they were basically running around in space without anybody keeping an eye on them. And so what this does is this basically reveals to us that both Phil Vaught and Jim Henson were part of a group called the First Eternity Battalion. Now, we're not going to learn a whole lot about them, but we're going to learn a little bit more here in a little while, just enough to kind of give us some context, and that's really about it. And it makes sense, just because these are characters that are being introduced. It would really be way too much information if we got origin stories for all these guys over the course of a 6-issue story. It'd be way too long, it'd be way too convoluted, way too confusing, and it would throw everybody off. And so we're basically just kind of given this little bit of information about Jim Henson. But the idea here is that from Phil Vaught's perspective, Jim Henson, as well as this guy Simon Roxlow, which we'll learn about him here in a minute, the idea is that because the Ultimates are more or less running around without anybody keeping an eye on them, and because of the fact that they basically
Not ready for paint yet, I don't think. I still make hella mistakes and do a lot of erasing. Cliffstead is fresh. Thanks, guys. Yeah, just do it anyway. I don't know. Just have fun. Do whatever you think, The ultimate key to art is to not, don't overthink it, just go for it, Learn a new technique and try it out is the best way to learn. Just go learn a new technique. There's tons of, finger painting. Go practice finger painting like what I'm doing right now, and just give it a try. No pressure.
And that's the coolest thing, because Galactus is such an imposing character, and in Marvel Comics, such a powerful character in Marvel Comics, that when he's with his Herald and things begin to sort of panic, you can almost kind of see him looking at the situation a little fearful and just kind of whispering to Connor Sims, look man, go tell the Ultimates what's going on before things are too late. And like whisking the Ultimate, whisking him away to go find the Ultimate. So it's really cool because it's a great way to show us the gravity of the situation. Now, because Master Order and Lord Chaos were unable to force their power onto Galactus, they travel to the In-Betweener. Remember, the In-Betweener was created by Master Order and Lord Chaos for the purpose of basically having a balance, a physical representation of the balance between Order and Chaos. But by absorbing the In-Betweener into them, and then with Master Order absorbing Lord Chaos into himself, what basically ends up happening here is we end up having a newly created being form called Logos. And this is really kind of a cool idea because now what it gives us is a new cosmic entity. And it's actually pretty interesting because the first thing this cosmic entity does is that it looks around and it says all these celestials and so on and so forth, they're all aberrations. They're all things that do not need to exist. They're holdovers from the way things used to be. A new order must be maintained. A new universe has been created, and the cosmic landscape must reflect this new universe. And so what happens is Logos obliterates every last one of the Celestials, save for one. And the one Celestial that is saved is essentially the one above all of the Celestials. Now, this brings into sharp relief the question of the one above all. How does it function? This is a super simple answer. There's two versions of the one above all. There is the god of the Marvel Multiverse, the one that we tried to kill and failed, and then there's the one above all Celestial. They're two distinctly different beings. Don't worry. People get them confused all the time. So it's cool. Don't sweat it if you're kind of a little thrown off by it. You're not the only one. A lot of folks kind of get thrown off by that, but we'll just call him the Top Celestial, just for the sake of keeping things easy. Even then, this is really the only time we see him. But Top Celestial is basically saved by the Never Queen. Now, the Never Queen was actually a Dan Slott creation, as far as I'm aware, and she originally appeared in Silver Surfer. But the Never Queen was really more of like a plot device that Dan Slott made. But because she was established to be a cosmic entity, she's basically been rolled over into all the other stories that involve cosmic entities. But the Never Queen basically exists outside of all things that currently exist, and she represents things that could possibly exist. So again, we're really getting into the realm of hypotheticals, so on and so forth. But because of the fact that everything happening in the universe is taking place in the present, she's always one step ahead. She's always in the future. She always represents the possibility of what could be. So the Never Queen is composed of the possibility of you going left instead of going right. The Never Queen is composed of the possibility of you waking up instead of dying. She's just composed of all the possibilities that could exist. That's what makes up who she is. So again, it's kind of crazy, but she fits perfectly into the realm of abstract characters. Now the problem with this is that in the midst of the troubleshooters residing inside the base of operations for the Ultimates, their presence culminates in the Ultimates arriving to see them there. And so what ends up happening is the Ultimates face off against the troubleshooters, and it's kind of a cool conflict to see. It's not wildly significant, but it's cool to see their various counterbalances. But what ends up happening here is Jim Tenson keeps tapping into something called the Psi-Force. Now, we don't know a whole lot about what the Psi-Force is. We simply just know that it's there. But the big guy who's really important to focus on here is Rossmo. This guy initially goes against Blue Marvel, Adam Brashear, and then easily overpowers him. And the biggest question to ask here is that if Adam Brashear is one of the most powerful beings in existence in Marvel Comics, then how much more powerful could Rossmo really be if he's going to overpower Adam Brashear in his entirety? So again, what seems to be the indication is that this Rossmo guy is a guy who's not supposed to be here. That he's someone who's a bit of an aberration. He's a guy that's not what he appears to be. And so again, in the middle of this battle between the Ultimates and the Troubleshooters, Logos returns to Galactus and forces him back into being the Devourer of Worlds. And when I first read this, I was just like, wow, like it blew my mind. Because Logos is basically like, you're going to go back to being who you were, whether you want to be or not. And so it's that's spilled all over Galactus. And one of the final words he says is, I hunger. Now, the depiction of Galactus as he appears here, in terms of how he's drawn, is designed to be that way. He looks screwed up. He looks wrong. He looks corrupted. That's exactly how it's supposed to be. That's how he's supposed to appear. Simply because of the fact that this is not his normal state. He's being forced back into an artificial state. Because remember, he basically evolved into his next stage, which was the life breathing, basically the ability to create life as opposed to destroy it. So what ends up happening here is that Rossmo emerges in the midst of this fight with the the ultimate, and basically becomes this sheer wrecking force, absolutely decimating every single member of the Ocean. Now, of course, Galactus basically teleports capturing everybody into that, but almost immediately falls. And so what we end up finding out is that with regards to Rockville being here, with regards to, all these different things that are going on with logos, with the building with chaos, all of this has basically been implemented itself by something called the first firmament. And this is when we start to get into the timeline of things making sense. Now, it kind of boggled me a little bit because up until this point in the story, things seem very disjointed all over the place. And it was a good read, but I would rather have had this timeline, at the beginning of the story. That being said, having it at the end actually makes it a little more impactful, just because of the fact that it gives us all the answers that we've been looking for all this time. And so what happens is Al Ewing goes all the way back to the very
Very
beginning
wet
of Marvel.
paint here
Now,
today.
in Marvel Comics, we knew this was the case, right? Like, before Secret Wars, we had Marvel, the multiverse, all that kind of stuff. The universe that you think of when you think of Marvel. So when Spider-Man first appeared, when the Incredible Hulk first appeared, Iron Man, all that kind of good stuff. Of course, we had the universe that Galactus hailed from, the multiverse, or I guess really the universe before the current version of the multiverse. And then we had, all these different universes and so on and so forth, dating back to the point when the very first universe came into existence somewhere along the line in Marvel Comics. What we end up finding out here is that this being the first firmament basically created life. As the singular representation of the very, very first universe, the firmament made a group called the Aspects. What Al Ewing is drawing on here is he's actually drawing on Kieran Gillen, I think it is, his run of Iron Man, which was absolutely amazing. But one of the things that Kieran Gillen established was that at some point in the history of the universe, there was a massive number of Celestials, but there was a war that had broken out between the Celestials and the Aspects. Now, we didn't know what the Aspects looked like, we didn't know their history, all we knew is that they were just some group with power equal to that of the Celestials, and it resulted in the Aspects basically overtaking the Celestials, pushing them to the brink of almost complete and total extinction. In an act of desperation, the Celestials created something called the God Killer Armor, and the God Killer Armor basically obliterated the Aspects and pushed them to the brink of all destruction. Now, that is the most recent version of the Marvel Universe, so we'll call that the 7th Marvel Multiverse. In this first Marvel Multiverse, what we're seeing here right now, this is basically just a war that broke out between the Aspects and the Celestials, which is always destined to do. But in this war that initially broke out, it led to the destruction of that universe, and when the universe was reborn as the second universe, the first firmament basically spread out. And so what we basically get up to this point is that there was a singular universe. With the destruction of the first universe, it exploded into a multiverse. And so with the creation of this multiverse came the cosmic entities that we know them, eternity, so on and so forth. And so because of that, in this second multiverse, things progressed. The wars repeated yet again. The war between the Aspects, the war between the Celestials. It kept happening over and over and over again throughout every single multiverse that was created, up to the 7th multiverse, which went into Secret Wars, which went into the 8th multiverse as we have it right now. But despite all these different conflicts that have happened, the first firmament was always in the back. This energy force was just always in the back, watching everything unfold. And the first firmament was plotting its revenge, was plotting its way to basically eliminate all things in existence, retake the universe back unto itself, and then be the sole universe in existence, basically consolidating everything back down. And so because of this, the first firmament began to launch a series of campaigns aimed at basically destabilizing all things in existence and trying to create aberrations that would make eternity extremely weak, due to the fact that following the new formation of the universe or the multiverse, eternity was already in a weakened state. So it would allow the first firmament to basically overpower eternity, put it in chains, and then begin the process of destroying everything. Now, the reason why I say that Al Ewing is basically going through a lot of changes is because, historically speaking, in Marvel Comics, eternity was the physical representation of a universe. And so there were an infinite number of eternities, one for each universe. The idea had been toyed with that there was a singular eternity that made up the multiverse, but there was nothing to indicate that it was actually true. What Al Ewing is doing here is making it true. Al Ewing is saying, now, there's a multiversal eternity. There's one eternity that represents, or is the physical embodiment of the multiverse. Inside that multiversal eternity are all the infinite number of universes, and one eternity for each of those universes. So again, it's a little interesting, at the very least, but again, it basically expands the Marvel cosmology. Now, of course, switching back to the conflict as it exists right now, of course, what we end up doing is we end up having Dr. Sims basically resurrected by the combined efforts of Monica Rambeau and Adam Brashear. And so because of the fact that Counter Sims is brought back. Connor Sims basically contains what's left of the Lifebringer energy, essentially takes himself directly to Galactus and merges himself with Galactus to a degree, in the sense that he displaces himself into Galactus. As a result, Galactus is reborn as the Lifebringer and then destroys Roxvo, and in doing so, learns everything that Roxvo knows, which is basically the first firmament. The idea that this first firmament has struck first, that this entire event, everything we've seen up to this point, is the first battle. It's the opening salvo. It's the first skirmish. And the first firmament intends to launch a massive campaign against the entire multiverse, destroying essentially everything and bringing all things into existence back into itself, and then being a singular universe unto itself going forward. Okay, so getting into this newest story of the Ultimates, a lot of people have been asking me to cover this. The biggest problem is that Marvel releases their stories monthly, so we've had to wait like 4 or 5 or 6 months for this story to finish before we can cover it. That's what's so irritating about the way Marvel publishes right now, because DC has spoiled me so bad. DC releases bi-weekly for like their most popular titles, and so by the time a story comes to an end, I actually have to go back and read it again because I usually forget what happened at the very beginning. But what this story is basically something called Eternity, and this focuses on the idea of what is quite literally a battle of cosmic entities. Now, what this also does is it requires us to understand like the new Marvel cosmic hierarchy and the way the multiverse works. In the description to that video that I made quite some time ago, and it basically runs over the new multiverse and the now, to brush back up on that, for those of you guys who just don't have time to watch it, the long and short of it is that Marvel, with the Ultimate Comics story, introduced something called the first firmament. And what they told us is that in the very beginning of all things, there was just this singular universe, and this universe was sentient. Every universe has been sentient. So if the universe could get up and walk around, it would be the first firmament. Now, the first firmament created life in the form of beings called the Celestials. And most people know who the Celestials are by this point. They're just these super powerful beings that are basically responsible for creating life and different things like that. But the Celestials that were created by the firmament existed in 2 forms: those who were faithful to the firmament and those who were not. Those who were faithful were called the Aspects. Those who were not were just called Celestials. Now, what this did is it basically led to this massive war, like this giant civil war among these beings that had enough power to basically control and manipulate all of reality itself. And so, like you would expect, this war quite literally laid waste to the universe. And what ended up happening is like you picking up a glass cup and dropping it on the ground, the universe completely shattered. Now, of course, what this did is all these different shattered pieces became universes of their own, and that was the explanation of how the multiverse came into existence. Now, for reasons that are never explained, that multiverse was destroyed and then recreated and destroyed and recreated and destroyed and recreated, so on and so forth, leading all the way up to Jonathan Hickman's collapse of the multiverse and Avengers and New Avengers, and then the start of all new, all different Marvel. But what Ultimates does in the all new, all different Marvel line of comics is it gives us the first firmament as this being that's basically existed outside of all time and space, and is finally making its return. But the reason why this matters is because we're talking about a level of power so extreme that the first firmament was actually able to, quote unquote, chain up the multiverse. This is something like abstract. For the most part, when it comes to comics, things are really easy to understand. It's easy to digest. The Incredible Hulk can stop, the Incredible Hulks can smash stuff. That's super simple. But when it comes to like cosmic entities, we're dealing with abstracts. We're dealing with a level of power so extreme that it can literally result in the destruction of all things in existence. And that's what I want you to keep in the back of your head. What we're going to be seeing over the course of this story is a level of power among these beings that's so insane that if one of them were to lose it, it would destroy all things in existence. Well, except for the Ultimates. We'll talk about them here in a second. But that's basically what this is. It's a fight for all existence. The way this opens up is with Galactus the Lifebringer. Now remember, if you're catching up on this, if you haven't seen any of the Ultimates videos that we've done so far, Galactus has always been the world devourer. That was always his thing. He would travel across the cosmos, he would consume worlds that were able to sustain life, he would keep his energies in check, and that was really it. With all new, all different Marvel, the first thing the team of the Ultimates did was band together and then basically transform Galactus into the Lifebringer so that he would no longer be a threat to the universe. Instead, he would be a force for good instead of a force for destruction. Now, of course, this sent Galactus on the path of going through and just like recreating worlds that he previously consumed, any number of things that like a superhero with that insane level of power would possibly do. The problem with this is that once Galactus learned that the first firmament had basically returned, and this being was of such an extreme level of power that it was able to basically chain up the multiverse, Galactus panicked. Now, if that does not give you an indication of how powerful the first firmament is, I don't know what will. Because keep in mind, with the power of Galactus, he can create life, he can end life, he can manipulate the universe itself. I mean, he's just a being, really one of the most powerful beings in existence out there. But the idea is that Galactus had basically been trying to fight off as best he can, and literally running for his life in almost every conceivable situation, because he'd been confronted by these beings that were working for the first firmament that were equal or superior to his own power. And so what he ended up doing was actually taking up refuge in a place that was basically created by the Molecule Man Owen Reese. Now remember, the Molecule Man basically sat alongside classic Reed Richards, Franklin Richards, and those guys, and they were the ones creating the new universes in all different Marvel. The idea was that because the Molecule Man was so insane in terms of his abilities, he also created kind of like this pocket universe for himself. And it was a place for him to just kind of hang out and kind of reside. Now, of course, what we're told by Galactus is that Molecule Man had long since abandoned this place. We don't know where he went to. We have no idea whatever happened to him. He had basically just taken off. And so because of this, Galactus basically co-opted this pocket dimension for himself. And then actually, once he emerges, he's on the planet of Ego. Now, Ego's kind of a weird situation, because in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is how most people are being introduced to his character, he is pretty different than he is in Marvel Comics. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Marvel calls him Celeste. He's actually not. He's literally just the guy who had tried to save his planet from the sun of the falling supernova. He ultimately failed, and he actually merged with all the people on the planet and the planet itself. And that's why he's called Ego the Living Planet. Now, something about this is that Ego hates Galactus. And the reason for this, as crazy as it sounds, is because when Galactus and Ego first fought, Galactus actually attached a rocket to his back end and sent him hurtling through space. That's exactly what happened. That's when you learn the whole origin story of Ego. The problem with this is that as powerful as Ego is, he's only ever really powerful on his own planet. It would be like if you had the ability to control whatever it was that your home did. If your home could get up and walk around, you could control whatever it was that you wanted it to do. Ego's like that with his home planet. So Ego, for example, cannot control Earth. With Galactus arriving here, because of the fact that he's exhausted with his own energies, he's not necessarily able to overpower Ego. Instead, it actually turns into really more of a diplomatic mission. And the reason for this is because Galactus is traveling around the cosmos and assembling a team of some of the most powerful beings in existence. The goal of Galactus is to recruit Ego to his side as just one of many people who can pull this off. Now, is Galactus perfectly aware of the fact that none of these guys could actually destroy the first firmament or defeat them? It's just a matter of, is it possible for them to? So, of course, this leads to Galactus actually using his powers to modify Ego the Living Planet, transform him into Ego Prime. So he's actually a full-bodied entity, which is cool, because we've never seen this before. Not only that, once Ego is taken by Galactus and brought to basically the Eternity Watch, is what they call themselves, we end up having a lot of these beings who are basically some of the most powerful beings in existence. Now, keep in mind, the cosmic entities, as we think of them, Celestial, Infinity, these characters, they were all destroyed in the last Arch 7 years. So Galactus normally would have been death, but they've all been destroyed. And so because of that, it's literally him grabbing whoever's left. Now, some of these characters are extremely ambiguous, like Infinite, for example. We don't know anything about him, but then there's people like the Shaper of Worlds, and there's the Psyhawk. Now, Psyhawk is kind of a weird situation, because Psyhawk was actually created by a guy named Archie Goodwin back in 1986 in a series called Psyforce that ran for about 3 years. Now, the idea is that he actually hails from a comic line called New Universe, which was relatively popular at the time, but never really regained steam. Eventually, Warren Ellis tried to relaunch it with New Universal, but it's
So happy with those 2 books I got signed at Frankie's. Hell yeah, HB. I was like, damn, bro. That's some serious fucking fire right there, dog. That C2E2 Venom, bro. Holy shit. That's probably his best Venom cover. In my opinion, that and obviously like Venom 7 with the Infinity Gauntlet. Like shit, dude. Those are obviously his 2 most badass Venom covers. I fucking love that C2E2, man. It's so clean. I want a big poster of it, right? Why didn't he make prints of that? He needs to make, maybe next tour. Ooh, I bet next tour we will have prints for that. Wouldn't that be, imagine how fucking crazy those would sell. People would buy them all.
It was one of the funniest things to happen there. It was really kind of a cool moment. But the idea here is that it's on a much broader scale. So while Secret Empire is happening and Hydra Captain America is like, I'm going to make the world a better place, like all existence is on the brink of complete and total collapse. And so what we end up doing here is we actually transition. And we end up
Love that
finding that
C2E2.
Galactus is not
Hell
the
yeah.
only person involved here. There is another being who is involved in trying to figure out a way to keep this collapse of the multiverse from happening. And that this being is actually Reed Richards.
Do you have anything good to eat today yet, bro?
Alongside the High
It's usually my main question is, what are people
the
eating?
High Evolutionary Herbert Woman here in a second, but I want to talk about the Maker, because the Maker is really one of the cooler characters that exists in Marvel Comics, but he's also a character that Marvel's never really done a whole lot with outside of the Ultimate Universe in terms of him crossing over. And that makes sense, because there was never a reason for him to. But the idea is that the Maker, this version of Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe, his origin story is basically what you saw in that terrible Fox film that has a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes, which it rightfully deserves, except for Michael B. Jordan. He was amazing. But the idea is that this version of Reed was very similar to his main Marvel counterpart in the sense that he was a genius, he became part of a think tank, eventually he branched off, formed the Fantastic Four, so on and so forth. The difference here is that in 2009, Marvel launched an event in the Ultimate Universe called Ultimatum. And this event was basically all of the superheroes in the Ultimate Universe versus Magneto. And it was amazing. I liked Ultimatum. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people did not like Ultimatum at all. But I enjoyed Ultimatum. It was kind of a cool thing. But this was one of those stories that was designed to implement a paradigm shift. And one of the things that it saw was basically Reed Richards in the Ultimate Universe falling from grace, so to speak, his marriage proposal being rejected by Susan Storm, so on and so forth, and then eventually becoming a bad guy. And so what this did is that he really rechristened himself as the Maker. Now, it also led into things like Children of Tomorrow, which is kind of cool. And honestly, I wouldn't mind covering that. I always thought aspects of the Ultimate Universe were always kind of fun and kind of interesting. The problem is that most people on my channel don't really seem to care. But it's kind of a cool scenario because he was actually one half of the equation when it came to Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers. There came a point when Ultimate Reed actually joined the cabal of Thanos in trying to destroy different Earths across the multiverse. But the idea here is that the Maker is actually working alongside Herbert Wyndham. Now, the High Evolutionary is actually a guy who basically evolved his own molecular structure. He was obsessed with the idea of human evolution. Now, of course, modifying his own self, he gave himself basically godlike powers. He is a human being pushed to the extreme of what humans will most likely become. But he also just kind of became this mad scientist in the sense that he just kind of hung out and wanted to go a mountain, and he basically just created like all these different things. He had like counter Earth, so on and so forth. And that's actually where these guys are right now. They are in counter Earth. It's basically another Earth that's orbiting. But that's kind of the weird thing, and that's the disconnect, because you'll never see counter Earth in any other stories in Marvel Comics. You will only see it in this. One of the big reasons why people are just kind of like, okay, continuity's out the window in Marvel, because you would think that if there was another Earth orbiting around the existing Earth, then somebody out there would have noticed. But it's kind of a weird scenario, because what they've basically come to the conclusion of is that with eternity, quote unquote, basically being chained by the first firmament, their goal is to essentially grab all the now, the belief is that it will basically empower eternity. It'll make eternity more powerful than it was before. Remember, eternity is a living embodiment of the universe. And so the idea is to merge all of these universes into one, and then feed that energy directly into eternity, giving it the power to escape the first firmament. The problem with this is that we don't know if it'll really succeed. And of course, it does to a degree, but the issue is that it actually coincides with the Maker and High Evolutionary watching all these events unfold with regards to Galactus and his Eternity Watch facing off against these aspirants, these faithful Celestials to the first firmament itself. And of course, where they do the best they can to face off against these forces, in the end, it's really not much of a battle, because we're talking about a conflict that is extreme in the degree. And so what we end up doing is we actually transition the Black Panther into a place called the Necropolis. Now, the crazy thing about what Black Panther is doing is he's actually being pretty dangerous. When it comes to the various gods in Marvel Comics, especially the Panther God, the being that basically provides Black Panther with his various abilities, the Panther God is pretty selfish. And the Panther God's like, look, you will worship me and no one else. Now, with regards to what Black Panther is doing, the Necropolis was actually a concept that I believe was created by Jonathan Hickman. And it was a way for Black Panther to actually talk to anyone who's ever been a Black Panther in the history of Wakanda. Basically him going to those who have greater experience and who were wiser than him, but have long since passed away, and say, what do you guys think that I should do here? Now, that fit in nicely with the Black Panther concept, because it allowed T'Challa to basically maintain the autonomy of Wakanda while also seeking outside counsel. And so reaching out to those who have basically seen where these things will reside, or at the very least, who have a general idea of what the best road is to take, allows him to basically say, look, I don't know everything that's out there. I don't know everything that exists. I need your help in figuring these things out. Again, we'll talk more about that once we get into Avengers and New Avengers. But the idea is that because he cannot necessarily go to the Panther God because they're kind of on strenuous terms, which of course is in his own comic, the idea is that instead he reaches out to the Tiger God. And this is kind of cool because it gives us all these different pantheons, these different animal beings that exist out there. But the Tiger God basically emerged when the first beings came into existence. And while the Tiger God does represent the idea that humans were terrified of tigers, back in the early days, there's also the idea that the Tiger God basically represents the very essence of what it means for humans to feel fear. It is the full culmination of humanity's fears combined into a singular being. But the idea is that Black Panther really kind of fights against the Tiger God for a second, only to basically try to usurp its power. Now, of course, this leads directly to the Maker and the High Evolutionary being successful in their goal to channel all these universes' energies into eternity and then ultimately free it. But it has the side effect of bringing in the original Ultimates. And that's where people begin to look at these things. Now, something else that I want you to notice here is that among these original Ultimates is the Ultimate Incredible Hulk. And that's why I'm saying, during the events of Secret Empire, that was not Ultimate Hulk. That was just regular Bruce Banner. We know that because he's in this story right now. Now, it also begs the question, is Marvel just kind of throwing continuity out the window, which they seem to be doing, and is entirely possible. But the fact remains here that because of the fact that these different universes are all basically coalescing into one another, it allows, Galactus and his Eternity Watch to actually jump out of all space and time. So they're literally in this white space. They're outside of all things in existence. They can actually watch things in existence take place. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about beings who are of the highest order. So it's not like you standing in Las Vegas and trying to see what's happening in Los Angeles. They have this sort of multiversal cosmic awareness. So they can stand outside of the multiverse itself. They can stand outside of all things and still see what's going on inside. The idea here is that, again, Galactus begins to hit home on the concept that if the first torment is not stopped, if this universe isn't halted, then there is ultimately the destruction of all things in existence, which includes all the remaining cosmic entities, death, so on and so forth. The cool thing about this is that it also basically has the Ultimates, the newest version of the Ultimates, facing off against their alternate reality counterparts. Now, the funny thing about this is that people look at Blue Marvel, Adam Bashir, and in a lot of ways, he's kind of a write-off. Now, of course, people have recently on YouTube been talking about him more and more, but basically, Blue Marvel is one of Marvel's versions of Superman. That's really it. Now, he's also a genius in a lot of different ways, but his power is not to be trifled with. And in this instance, he knocks out Ultimate Hulk in one punch. That's all it takes. He literally just uppercuts him in the chin, and that's the end of Ultimate Hulk. I mean, he's just down. Now, the idea here is that because he's so empowered, and because he takes out the, Ultimate Hulk so fast, it immediately catches the attention of the other Ultimates, the original Ultimates. Now, of course, they continue fighting on until America Chavez basically says, hey, look, we're the current Ultimates here in this universe. Now, it's basically the Avengers from one universe meeting the Avengers from another universe. And at that point, it just creates a ceasefire. It is this classic Ultimates Captain America basically saying, everybody stop. Everybody stand down. If they are effectively Avengers, and we're basically Avengers, then we need to talk this out and figure out what's going on. The problem with this is that by combining their efforts together, they come to the realization that what the Maker did was by freeing eternity, it basically allowed eternity to be consumed by the first firmament, to literally allow the first firmament to bolster its own power. And so, inadvertently, he actually achieved the opposite of what he was shooting for. Now, none of this matters anyway, just because of the fact that the Maker, as we see him here, is just as arrogant as he ever was when he was in the Ultimate Universe. And so, because of this, it literally leads to him just being destroyed by Spectrum, this living source of energy. That's all she is. She's energy in physical form. And that's really all there is to it. He gets wiped out pretty fast. Now, I would argue the reason why this is done is because of the fact that the Maker is also still going on in Infamous Iron Man. So again, this is the whole continuity thing. This is why things are getting kind of weird. For those of you guys that never read DCU, this is the problem people had when it came to DC Comics. Characters appear in one story, they don't appear in the other. There's no continuity. We don't know when these stories take place. If one follows the other, it gets really weird, it gets really bonkers, and it gets really bananas. But the idea here is because of the fact that eternity has been consumed by the first firmament, the goal of the Ultimates as they exist is to combine a combination of their powers as well as their brains to task and actually actually jumpstart eternity again. And what this does is it brings him back. Not only that, because he's effectively resurrected here, it also brings about the reintroduction of all these different cosmic entities. Because remember, they are all effectively children of eternity. That's the way it worked when it came to Marvel Comics. You have eternity, the embodiment of the universe, and then like, a man and a woman giving birth to a kid, eternity just sort of popping out all these cosmic entities, different things like that. Those celestials who were destroyed by the first firmament are basically resurrected here. They're essentially brought back. And so again, it's kind of eternity giving birth to all these things, bringing all these entities back again. So because of that, we also end up finding out that the Queen of Nevers had actually taken the last of the celestials before they were destroyed. And so this one celestial that did survive gave birth to even more celestials. So again, it's basically this return to familiarity. It's everything resetting itself back to the way it was before, just by virtue of eternity popping up. So again, it's really just this idea that this being that literally exists as the culmination of the universe is returning the universe back to the way that it's supposed to be. Now, of course, things wrap up pretty fast here, and it's actually kind of disappointing the way it wraps up so fast. The reason for this is because of the fact that if you're not familiar with what Marvel's doing right now, Marvel's basically doing Legacy and Generations. And the idea is there was so much negative backlash to Secret Empire. There was so much negative backlash to Marvel basically switching characters over, getting rid of classic characters, replacing them with new ones, that Marvel hit the panic button. And instead, they said, okay, fine, we need to basically bring back everything the way that it used to be. And so this story, believe it or not, this is actually Ultimates 2, issue number 100. This is legacy numbering. What Marvel originally wanted was Ultimates 2, issues 7 through 12. That's what this story was slated for. But because of the whole renumbering thing, it's been shortened by 2 issues, and then in turn, they've just tacked on, this ending, sort of ramrodded it into the conclusion of the story. So it was supposed to drag on longer, as far as I can tell, but it's not. So things basically just end. The first firmament is just defeated right off the bat. That's really it. And then that just kind of brings it into the story. Things just kind of get reset to normal, and that's that. It's this quick, super end to a story that should have otherwise been drawn out by a couple more issues, and actually probably would have had more of a successful closure to it. But the fact remains, with this particular thing, it's really just things going back to normal to a degree. Galactus still remains the life bringer, but again, because of the fact that this takes place before the conclusion of Secret Empire, what it does is it just shows the rest of the members of the Ultimates going through and doing their own thing. Carol Danvers taking on Hydra, Black Panther going back to Wakanda with the Tiger God in his possession, presumably meaning that he's going to start drawing his power from a new entity. But again, it's one of these weird scenarios because the story just kind of ends. It just kind of comes to a conclusion. But with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like. And yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace. Marvel Download is the game you can download by clicking the link in the description, or will take you to the App Store where you can download it for the iPhone and the iPad.
I will suck your penis if I could change the world. If I could change the world, I would put you in my house and we'd live there. I would put you inside of my body. If I could change the world, I would make you tiny and put you in mice. You could control me with a bunch of levers and make me move. It wouldn't be gay, I'd be some kind of robot. It wouldn't be gay. I would be a robot, not a gay. I'd be some kind of big robot, or I'd be regular size and you'd be tiny. It wouldn't be gay, you'd have to control me with wires and buttons. I would be some sort of mecha robot. I would be a Gundam, and you would just live in my house. Yes. And people ask me, obviously the song is filled with symbolism. And I'm always surprised because it's probably one of the most literal songs. Well, yes, people ask me, Eric, what's the song about?
They're like, Eric, this was the second song you made after your son's unfortunate
One of the most literal songs I've ever written. It's quite frankly, if I could change the universe,
Tears in Heaven was about my son dying, but
I would make myself either very large, or I would select, a pilot, as my preferred, to live inside my house. Control me as if I were a giant robot.
right. Wouldn't be changing much about the world.
It would be. That
I have no idea
small
what
man.
he's
Yeah.
speaking of.
Something like that.
He's pretty chill though.
Cocaine. Love
That's
cocaine.
cool, dude. I remember listening to that song when I was like 12 and be like, hell yeah, dude, I love cocaine.
I could shrink you down and let you live inside my house. I'm not gay, but I'm not around. It's not gay. It's not gay. You could control me with a bunch of levers.
It's, you know, they say that an artist or a music says that the most interesting thing in the lyric is exploring the same theme over and over again.
Right.
The instrumentation will change. Because then you really challenge yourself.
Yep.
Because people are going to say, no matter what, the instant criticism is going to be, you've already covered this. We know you want to be with a giant robot or have a partner of some sort that's shrunken down to live inside your house.
Right.
To control you with wires and levers.
That's right.
We know this about you.
Everybody knows that.
We're familiar with this. That's why Cream has to break up.
Yeah.
We keep talking about it. When I was with the Yardbirds, I was always pushing for some kind of, we do live shows, and this is before Tool, who I'm really great with changing.
Oh yeah, Tool.
I wanted to project a video of me as some kind of dying alien that's sick from doing too much meditation.
Right.
And Tool stole that idea. I said,
Really?
Yes.
Seems like you had kind of a jump on.
I wanted to, yes. Initially,
Yeah.
I had the
30
idea
years.
of spinning an $80 million laser show set where there's a pyramid and you go inside the pyramid. Very similar to the 9/11
Right.
Correct. If I asked several people and they told me it was impossible to do that. But the only thing that those was confirmed was some kind of alien was throwing up and doing too much yoga.
Right.
Mad. Yeah.
An alien on the guy's ass.
Who's aligned his chakras to the extent that he's down in space. But it's too much.
Yeah. Too enlightened.
And they kicked me out of the band for that.
Out of Tool.
Yes, and
Eric Clapton was in Tool.
I had one interview with Tool. I was trying to be in Tool. And they stole my idea.
That's so funny. So what are your?
I submitted a packet to Tool, and
I just saw my own bit there.
and then I had lunch with my best friend Paul McCartney. My very good friend Paul.
Best friend.
Yeah,
Paul.
so the only guy I know. And I told him, I think where this went wrong, because this was the greatest tragedy in my life. Probably the worst thing that's ever happened was being rejected by Tool and then having them steal my idea for the sick air.
That has to be painful.
Yes. And yeah, really nothing else rings a bell.
Yeah, really think about
My life's been pretty good. I've had, it's been, it's almost magical, really.
Right.
And I said to him, I gotta go back to the robot thing.
You know that.
I said,
I need to get back to my roots.
This was all due to me departing from my original solely pursuing one artistic expression my entire life, which is that I want to be again, I could be a
That's what I wrote the song. Thank you, Eric.
When I went I was actually the screenwriter of the line.
Really?
Created the story. Came up with it. And originally it was about
Was Timon originally in Pumbaa's ass?
that was correct. I imagined an ancient African god who tricks a young lion cub into giving him his ass.
Wow.
And the lion cub grows to full size inside of his ass. It's very similar to the story of, I believe it was Hercules carrying an oxen around his house or something.
Yeah, I believe so.
And he had a blue oxen, and as he grew older, that's how he became John Revere.
Right.
You remember the story of John Haynes and the sheep.
Right.
So we said,
Terrible.
what if we did a version of that set in Africa? With the comments, I was really thinking a lot more about the robot. stole my idea.
Yeah, well, it seems like it was a different idea.
No,
though.
I went
Similar.
in 1983. I went to Disney. I said, let's do a children's movie set in Africa, right? And then happens at Christmas. And
Right. It's called The Lion King?
it's called Terminator 2. And I can't prove it, obviously. But what happens? 10 years later,
Right. They make Terminator 1.
Disney releases a movie set in Africa for children.
That's right.
And that doesn't. Wait, I'm sorry. Did Terminator 1 come out?
No,
I'm sorry.
He
But we don't need to
Terminator
be.
2, and then they had to make a Terminator 1 to steal his idea for Terminator.
You don't need to be a giant crime-solving robot to figure out
Right, what happened?
what happens with a man in his ass. Figure out.
He's pulling levers to control it.
It's not necessary. You can see clear as day what happened in this. It was so intimidating.
Dastardly. Downright fucked up, Eric.
Yes.
Well, thanks for joining us for the first part of the Comedown. We're trying to have more mainstream guests.
Yeah, we're trying to become
That's
more
our interview
relevant.
with Eric Clapton.
Yeah, thanks. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, so when you were in Cream, yeah, well, Derek and the Dominoes, of course. So many great projects.
How about this? Why did you do? Do you have any? Perhaps either one of you. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, sure.
Intimately, but if either one of you want to use this joke setup to demonstrate your knowledge of Eric Clapton's
Thank you.
actual
Thank you, I appreciate that.
portfolio.
I just did that.
If there's any,
Well, I was gonna ask you.
if that would be very funny to you.
Right. I was actually gonna say, was the band Cream named after when you would come, like coming out of your cock?
Oh no, very funny.
Really?
No, we were sitting around trying to come up with a name for it. And one of the things
Oh, for your coffee in London.
The first one. There's a lot of people know that the first one was in London.
Yeah.
And I was having rooms over my head. And the other members of Cream, Paul McCartney,
Right.
and Elton John.
Denny's.
And
In Piccadilly Circus, right? The days of Piccadilly Circus.
If I remember correctly, Paul McCartney was having the Southwestern Crazy Cowboy tortilla soup. And Elton John was eating a bowl of gum. He brought his own. He would bring a bowl of cum everywhere, and he would lick at it like a kitten.
This is even when he was pretending to be straight.
This was when he was pretending to be a kitten. It was a period, people forget, he went straight, then cat, then gay. It was kind of it was really, I almost blame that cat's phase because he became obsessed, absolutely obsessed with Mr. Mistopheles.
Right. Who is cool. I don't know if he listened to us, but I thought he was pretty cool. Yeah, we talked about him on our show. Do you like Mr. Mistopheles, Eric?
1983.
Oh, 1983.
No, I went to Broadway.
Let's hear it.
I went to Broadway. That's got an idea for a musical.
Right.
It's about a man who They're pushing me out of the office.
What does it say?
And it's this one's set in New York City. Wow. And it's Christmas time. And the man, he's become lost because he got on the wrong plane and his family's going on vacation. And the only way he can get back to Chicago, where the two robbers that are after him, is if a man lives in his ass and directs him where he needs.
This is a grown man. He's a grown man who's separated from his family. Kevin McAllister.
He's a grown man named Kevin McAllister.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, 3 years later, Cats, the musical.
Wow. That's a great plot. So you're pissed about that. Have you ever heard of the movie Home Alone, Eric? Home Alone 2, I believe. Home Alone 2?
I have.
Lost in New York.
I think that's just a coincidence.
You think that?
I think it's parallel thinking.
Parallel thinking. But the Lion King about a crime-fighting
I think
robot.
that's a simple case of parallel thinking. If you're all right.
Oh, Okay, that's interesting.
So we're at Denny's.
Right, right. And Elton, who's obsessed at this time with Mr. Mephistopheles, who you by your own estimation, you thought up of in 1983.
Yes.
So this is the 60s. So Elton is obsessed with a different guy named Mr.
I
Mephistopheles.
had told him the
He
idea.
told him in broad strokes the idea.
I told him my idea for Home Alone 2. And he said, I want to hear more about that.
So just to be clear, in your idea for Cats, for Home Alone 2,
No. My idea for a movie about the man who's a robot who goes from his family
called Cats.
being pursued. Well, no,
It's called Home Alone 2.
No, it's called A Scan of Darkness. He's pursued by two robbers. One magical Mr. Mistopheles.
Is he a cat?
He's a large cat.
Okay.
And the other one, his name is Dr. Manhattan. He's blue and you can see his penis.
Oh, that's scary. So Eric Clapton's just scanned darkly. The plot of having a Home Alone guy named Kevin McAllister. And so he had loved this guy so much that he started laughing up Come and Dance.
He's doing his own bill to come every because it's actually it's illegal to transport milk across state lines.
In their states in England?
In the English United States of England. Which is what it was called at the time.
I didn't know that.
A lot of people don't know that the Brit invasion was actually a cultural exchange program. So, y'all, as you would say,
Right,
got
thank you.
rock and roll from us. And in exchange, we got Denny's and States.
I thought you said the first Denny's was from England.
But it was based on
I see.
it was an American theme.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, they did not have diners. Interesting. Everyone would just eat, well, come.
Right. Oh, wow.
So Elton was,
Soul must have been pissed that everything got so Americanized that they stopped selling cum at restaurants.
that's why I got to bring
No, but I thought he brought that. Well, yeah.
Right. And so, we thought it would be a funny prank to replace his cum with cream.
Did that piss him off?
He's highly allergic. So he died.
That's a what?
And he was replaced. And Elton John moved down there.
So that's a different. So this Elton John is a complete another coincidence.
The first Elton John was black.
Wow. So you had a gay friend named Elton John. He's a black man. He was black. He was from Africa. He said he's from Africa?
He was in Nigeria. And there were no sandals everywhere.
Was he good at music?
No, he was not.
But he was still in Queen.
I met him when I was scouting locations for my idea for a film in John as a friend of Mr. And I went down to Nigeria to see it because it came to me in a dream.
Right.
And I had the dream right after eating a bunch of bananas. And
Sure.
at the time, had been reading a lot of psychology, and he talked extensively about how your dreams actually come from the country.
With the fruit. The fruit that you eat. Before going to sleep. And because you had bananas, you thought you should go to Nigeria.
Which is where they're from.
That's exactly right.
That's where they're from.
I don't know if that's exactly right.
That's exactly right.
I mean, I believe that that's your thought process, Eric, but I don't think that's correct. There's multiple things wrong with that statement.
And so that's when you met Sir Elton John.
And I met Elton John before. He picked me up at the airport. He was my cab driver. And I said, I want you to come back to England, and I'm going to teach you how to make music.
Yeah. So, okay, let me ask you this. Have you ever what's the closest you've gotten to having a man in your ass pull a lever?
Yeah, have you ever lived your
Have you
truth?
tried it?
Well, I've actually,
Why?
in New York to do just a couple of podcasts, and I'm trying to make my way up to Joe Rogan, because I want Joe Rogan to introduce me to Elon Musk. And I'm going to proposition him basically
Oh,
and
okay.
say, if you present me with the proper funding and research, everything, these companies are capable of to create or turn me either into a giant robot or possibly shrink another human. So different research teams to look at it.
Right.
If we can go down either path with results in us accomplishing this goal, our goal, in my lifetime, I'll suck his cock.
That's what you have to offer.
That's it.
And the way. That's the
I
plan.
spent all my money trying to do it myself,
Right.
and I believe you guys would call it fucked up.
Right. Yeah.
I don't particularly like using fish words, but these instances
Sure.
I don't cuss.
You don't
I
cuss.
don't cuss.
You made that very clear in the
That was a
pre-interview
quote of
process.
us. I don't think that an artist should ever use swear. That's why I think this doesn't think that.
Oh wow.
It's because
Interesting. He doesn't really cuss that much.
Well, there's a lot of reasons, not that in my reasons that he uses cuss words.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So you're gonna do Compound, and what other parts you have
Work
lined
my
up?
way up to Joe.
What are you doing? The guys who fuck?
I blew all my money because I got a Home Depot.
Oh, right.
Well, they have beef jerky.
Oh, you didn't even buy
I
something
didn't
for
even
the
think
robot.
about it. No, I stopped. I spent maybe $7,000 on PVC.
Okay. Good start.
And a lot of switches. I got those lovely switches.
Like electrical switches?
Well, my whole house is filled with bicentennial.
That's just looking just great right there.
I was obsessed with the Revolutionary War after seeing the well, not once. I had mistakenly identified as the Revolutionary War. It's tough to it gets confused. We've never had a war, so we don't.
British.
Yeah. So we don't even know. Most people in England never heard of it.
Yeah.
What about World War II? No. I don't think so.
You personally, you haven't heard of World War II.
But I saw Wild Wild West, and I said this spider eerily close to my idea of giant.
Did you ever pitch that?
I can't say. I did have sex with Kevin Kline, but I can't say that. I mean, it's possible he maybe read one of my notes about my idea for a giant man.
You think Kevin Kline looked at your diary? But that's fair for you to say it might be parallel thinking.
It might be parallel thinking.
Yeah. You're very gracious. That's very gracious.
Thank you for all your time. Well, I'm one of the greatest
guitarist.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
And did you and thinkers?
Yes. You can't really often up again. That's exactly
I hate to see you cry. You can kind of see how he's going. I like that boot a lot, actually. It's looking good, the lighting on it. Everything else is pretty much coming together. I'm going to let this dry and then go over another coat because I kind of just feel like doing the cape right now. Alright, I'll be back.